Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of 2 Chronicles, the 23rd chapter. As we saw in the 22nd chapter, the mischievous connivings of Athaliah in her attempts to slay all the children of her son, in the Lord actually intervening by having one of them being delivered and hidden in the temple. So at this point, Athaliah has been reigning for about 6 years. You know, God knows the terror she's brought within that time span. But now we go into the 7th year here in 2 Chronicles, the 23rd chapter. So verse 1, and in the 7th year of Jehoiada, and in the 7th year, Jehoiada strengthened himself and took the captains of hundreds, Azariah the son of Jehoram, and Ishmael the son of Jehohanan, and Azariah the son of Obed, and Maaseiah the son of Adaiah, and Elishaphat the son of Zikri, into covenant with him. So Jehoiada being the priest right at this time, I believe he might have been the high priest, but basically he was hiding the king's son, right, the last remaining heir to the throne. So in the 7th year, you know, at this point he felt, all right, this is the right time. He basically called the captains, so the heads of the armies, right, ones that had jurisdiction, they had men under them, and entered into a covenant with them, right? So he basically, you can imagine either them having them swear an oath, right, or some form of loyalty to what he was about to reveal to them. And they went about in Judah and gathered the Levites out of all the cities of Judah and the chief of the fathers of Israel, and they came to Jerusalem. So this wasn't like a 12-hour, 5-hour thing, right? You know, this took some time to have to go through, you know, the various lands and gathering them. And you can imagine, of course, this wasn't, you know, out on the rooftops, right? This was probably something that was done, you know, secretly. And all the congregation made a covenant with the king in the house of God. And he said unto them, Behold, the king's son shall reign, as the Lord Yahweh hath said of the sons of David. This is the thing that ye shall do. A third part of you, entering on the Sabbath, of the priests and of the Levites, shall be porters of the doors. So remember that going back to the time of King David, he had set orders, right, for the priests and according to their different families and the roles that they would play. So what Jehoiada was saying here is that the priests that are coming in on duty on the Sabbath, a third part of them are going to be porters of the doors, basically doorkeepers or gatekeepers. And a third part shall be at the king's house, and a third part at the gate of the foundation. So he basically split them up into 1/3, right? And each of them were stationed at different locations. And all the people shall be in the courts of the house of the Lord. So everybody else would be in the outer court area. That's where these Levites and priests would be stationed in the various areas we just read. But let none come into the house of the Lord Yahweh, save the priests and they that minister of the Levites. They shall go in, for they are holy, but all the people shall keep the watch of the Lord. So with the exception of the priests and the Levites that are actually ministering, meaning serving, whether it's like the morning oblation, right, or whatever it is that they were doing, they would be the ones that could go into the actual temple, as to where everybody else would be on the outer court, as it says, to keep the watch of the Lord, right, to adhere to the ordinance of the Lord, going back to the Torah. And the Levites shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapons in his hand. So that's one thing to note as well, right? Like, the Levites weren't a bunch of old men, weak and feeble. You know, when people think of the priests, you know, they think of like some old weak people, right? That you know, you push them and they fall and break a bone or something. No, all right. The Levites were you know, they were men just like everybody else. Okay, and you had valiant men among them as well. So you had here, right, the Levites with the weapons in their hands, and whosoever else cometh into the house, he shall be put to death. So that was the order, right? This is tell everybody who's here what role they have to play, and if anybody steps out of line, they're put to death. But be ye with the king when he cometh in, and when he goeth out. So wherever the king goes, being that he was young, you're supposed to be with him, right? Like today they have secret services. So the Levites and all Judah did according to all things that Jehoiada the priest had commanded, and took every man his men that were come in on the Sabbath, with them that were to go out on the Sabbath, for Jehoiada the priest dismissed not the courses. And what that means is you had, remember, right, you had Levites that would come on duty to relieve those that were on duty that would go off duty. But for this occasion, Jehoiada had it to where nobody was going off duty. Yeah, so those that were both coming to start their shift, so to speak, plus those that were already on duty, were all staying. Verse 9. Moreover, Jehoiada the priest delivered to the captains of hundreds spears and bucklers and shields that had been King David's, which were in the house of God. And he set all the people, every man having his weapon in his hand, from the right side of the temple to the left side of the temple, along by the altar and the temple, by the king round about. Then they brought out the king's son, and put upon him the crown, and gave him the testimony, and made him king. Right, so they anointed him, they did all that, the actual ordinance of making him king. And Jehoiada and his sons anointed him, and said, God save the king. Now when Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and praising the king, she came to the people into the house of the Lord. So she's probably wondering what the hell is going on out there. You know, you got people running around and all that. So she comes over there trying to find out what's going on. And she looked, and behold, so you can imagine now she's shoving, you know, they moving people aside, her big ass coming through the way and shit, what's going on. And she finally sees, and behold, the king stood at his pillar at the entering in, and the princes of the trumpets, and the princes and the trumpets by the king, and all the people of the land rejoiced, and sounded with trumpets, also the singers with instruments of music, and such as taught to sing praise. Then Athaliah rent her clothes and said, Treason, treason! So she's seeing all this, and her heart is beating, because she knows what she did, right? She knows what she was basically, her plan was to kill everybody. So at this point, she's seeing, oh shoot, there's an heir that's alive. I'm cooked. So she's yelling treason, treason, knowing damn well she wasn't the right one to be on the throne anyway. Then Jehoiada the priest brought out the captains of hundreds that were set over the host, and said unto them, Have her forth of the ranges, and whosoever followeth her, let him be slain with the sword. For the priest said, Slay her not in the house of the Lord. Because remember, she was there, right at the you can imagine maybe the temple entrance, right, the court. And she saw this, so they grabbed her up and they took her out so that they wouldn't defile the temple with her blood. So they laid hands on her, and when she was come to the entering of the horse gate by the king's house, they slew her there. And Jehoiada made a covenant between him and between all the people and between the king, that they should be the Lord Yahweh's people. Then all the people went to the house of Baal and brake it down, and brake his altars and his images in pieces, and slew Matan, the priest of Baal, before the altars. And the fact that he's mentioned by name here must mean that he was probably one of the known priests of Baal that was in the land. You know, so they basically took him out. It was like a reform, you know. Also Jehoiada appointed the offices of the house of the Lord Yahweh by the hand of the priests, the Levites, whom David had distributed in the house of the Lord Yahweh, to offer the burnt offerings of the Lord, as it was written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and with singing, as it was ordained by David. So the priests, right, there are different roles. Like I mentioned, you had some that were to deal with the actual offering, right? Of the sacrifice. Some that would deal with handling the utensils and so on and so forth, burning the incense and all of that. So in any case, they were going back to their regular duties, but everybody was rejoicing, having been that righteous order was or righteous judgment was executed. Verse 19, and he set the porters at the gates of the house of the Lord Yahweh, that none which was unclean in anything should enter in. And he took the captains of hundreds, and the nobles, and the governors of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought down the king from the house of the Lord Yahweh. So this whole time the king was in the temple. That was the safest place for him. And they came through the high gate into the king's house, and set the king upon the throne of the kingdom. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet. And when it says quiet, it means not like literal per se, but more so there was peace. After that, they had slain Athaliah with the sword. And that brings us to the end of the book of 2 Chronicles, the 23rd chapter. Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rechak Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.